When we last left off, the Holy Demon Army executed a game plan to capitalize on the injuries of the World Tag Team Champions in order to snatch away their gold. In the process, Toshiaki Kawada achieved his first ever pinfall victory over Mitsuharu Misawa. While he's taken the tag gold, pinning the Triple Crown champion has made a statement. It was time for him to take his shot once again at the ace and try to leave with the Triple Crown. The story of Kawada against Misawa in 1995 has been one of incremental progress aided by the cruelty of fate. Of course, the keystone to almost all of Misawa's 1995 is the Champion Carnival match between these two that saw Kawada break Misawa's orbital bone with a kick in the opening moments of the match. Taken as a piece of the company's storytelling, we can read that the injury might just be why Misawa went to a 30-minute draw against Kawada in the Carnival instead of beating him as he always had. As we saw in our last episode too, the broken orbital bone was instrumental in allowing the Holy Demon Army to pick apart the tag team champions and let Kawada pin Misawa's shoulders to the mat. Toshiaki Kawada has taken the ace to a draw, he's pinned the man's shoulders down, and he's taken the tag gold. All that's left to do is get the job done one-on-one, with the Triple Crown Championship on the line. What makes this bout from July 25, 1995 so fascinating is how well it utilizes the context of Misawa's 1995 to craft a compelling and, I'd argue, superior sequel to the famed 6-3-94. A lot of that comes from how well Misawa and Kawada structure this bout to play seamlessly on the themes of 6-3-94 in the rematch. Take note of the first act here. We find Kawada displaying the proficiency and confidence that he seemed to discover mid-match in 6-3-94. This time, he brings that self-assuredness to the opening moments of the fight, and he's notably one step ahead of Misawa for the early goings. There's a clear sense of strategy here too. Much of his attack is once again targeted at Misawa's orbital bone, using a face kick and the abesegiri to knock Misawa down to the floor. For a moment, Kawada stands triumphant solidly in the ring, controlling the space and the tone of the match, and it really does feel like it might be his night. Misawa's coming in with a weakness Kawada caused and has exploited, and he's got the momentum on his side from 6-9-95. This small moment too, where Misawa has to catch his breath on the outside of the ring as Kawada awaits him, can't help but recall the closing moments of 6-3-94, where Misawa had to dig deep in order to defeat Kawada. This time though, it genuinely feels like Kawada's the one who's flipped the switch. There's no attempt to ground things as he did in 92 or even 93. Instead, it's straight to battering Misawa's face in as direct and vicious a way as possible. When Misawa again tries to create space, Kawada's even smart enough to follow through, stick with it, and powerbomb Misawa onto the floor of the Budokan. It's smart, it's effective, and it's Toshiaki Kawada operating on a level of efficiency he's yet to ever have against Misawa one-on-one. How cruel then, when nature insists upon itself. As he's wont to do, Kawada crowds Misawa in the corner with knees to the face. And as he's wont to do, this only emboldens the ace to stand to his feet and blast back. Misawa strings together a few elbows and then nails that rolling elbow to knock Kawada right on his ass. And then it's like nothing's changed at all. The whiplash of the comeback is frankly astonishing. A few of those killer elbows, and Kawada can barely keep his feet back to the nearly unconscious, desperate challenger that he's become so used to playing through the years. There's a brutality to Misawa's attack too, no longer bothering with the niceties of championship wrestling. There's a vicious streak to how quickly he turns to the bombs to try to bring Kawada back down, as if he has to escalate things to the next level to truly humble this traitor for daring to make him taste mortality. Kawada's comebacks are few and far in between. He throws desperate shots like his signature Northern Lariat, or he clings on for dear life with the sleeper hold that he brought back on this tour. He yanks away with a stretch plum. He kicks Misawa in his stupid broken face. Try as he might though, he's always just one big elbow away from having it all slip through his fingers yet again. Kawada unloads the clip on Misawa. Backdrop after backdrop, folding powerbomb after folding powerbomb, and here at the peak of his momentum, at the height of his powers, just as everything had finally been going his way, he just can't get it done. I love his desperation here, just mounting Misawa, smashing away with elbows to the face. One can almost hear the emotion behind it without anything being said at all. What's it going to take? Can't you just stay down? Kawada makes the mistake of standing and trading with Misawa, obviously a losing battle if you're throwing elbows. But even when he starts to throw kicks to the orbital bone, suddenly Misawa fires back with his own. And even there, Kawada finds himself outmatched. Even the crowd can feel it in the moment. Listen. It's this absolute refusal to fall for the same tricks, to take what Kawada came in wanting to rely on and throw it back in his face twice as hard. There's an almost stunned horror in Kawada's face when he absorbs that first kick. It's the kind of emotion put behind a stand and trade sequence that we've seen 1,000 times at this point that can really separate the good from the great and the great from the all-timers. Look at him. He can't fucking believe it. Then look at the stunned expression he has when he falls to the mat, feeling the old, familiar sting. It's not even panic at this point, just the dawning realization that this new day will end up just like all the ones before. Unlike 6-3-94, where it's a final burst from Misawa that ends up winning the day, things actually get to settle here. Misawa fully has Kawada where he wants him, and even when Kawada throws a final desperate punch as Misawa did last June, it's Misawa who's able to return in kind and continue this almost divine punishment. Tiger suplex after tiger suplex, and then Misawa's elbow is God. It is one of the most devastating losses in pro wrestling history. An almost cosmic reckoning, a realignment of nature to correct the aberration of the last few months. It is a powerful, demanding victory. After months in the clouds, Kawada gets sent crashing back down to earth by the ace of heaven himself. Painful to behold if you're a Kawada fan, triumphant and bold if you're with Misawa. Oh well, there's always next time. 4 3/4 for me. In the semi-main event, under Misawa Kawada, Akira Taue and Kenta Kobashi would wrestle in the final match of a 4-man round-robin tournament to determine the next #1 contender to the Triple Crown title. Entering the match, Akira Taue led the league with 4 points, while Kobashi came in with only 2. In a must-win situation for Kobashi, Taue ended up lasting the full 30-minute time limit to force a draw and to secure the tournament in his favor. That brings us to September 10th. Taue now has the chance to avenge his loss to Misawa in the Carnival Final, while also having the chance to take his first ever Triple Crown Championship. At this point, we know that Misawa's orbital bone has healed up enough to have endured Kawada's attacks in July. Taue still wrestles towards attacking the face as a key strategy here, but he introduces a new wrinkle to the attack by going after Misawa's leg. It's a really great choice here, as Taue never makes the knee the primary focus of his attack, a smart call given his lack of mat credibility, but he does constantly batter away at it in an attempt to open up Misawa for other offense. It does help Taue in other ways as well, allowing him to have a second target to cut off Misawa's momentum with, and also in potentially disrupting Misawa's big suplexes by making bridging out on things like a German suplex even harder for the Triple Crown champion. The knee work too, as Taue deploys it, feels just as ruthless and mean as the face work, not having anything too fancy on the mat for it, and sticking to just these shitty kicks to the kneecap make it feel cheap and unadmirable. It really adds a nice layer to Taue's heel performance. It's perhaps not as great as the Carnival Final, but this really is one of my favorite Taue performances in a year stacked with great ones from him. The match plays out as Taue hoping to use both the attack on the leg and the face as a means of wearing down Misawa for the bigger bombs in the challenger's arsenal. In spite of this, though, Misawa remains strong enough to avoid the most dangerous element of Taue's strategy, the cliff apron Nodowa Otoshi to the floor. Taue tries for it multiple times, even looking to escalate by removing the padding on the floor for one attempt, but he fails to ever nail it, such that when he does eventually hit the dynamic bomb in the ring, it's not enough to keep Misawa down. Without the killer power of the apron Nodowa Otoshi, something that had already failed to keep Misawa down in the Carnival, it's no shock then that when Misawa comes back, it is with a real vengeance. As he did against Kawada, Misawa lays the bombs in before settling the question with one of the most brutal-looking rolling elbows of this era. My god, look at Taue bump for that. A truly wondrous thing that emphasizes once again, Misawa's elbow is God. It's a finish so damn good that it knocked the love of King's Road back into me. An under-discussed wonder of a Triple Crown title match. 4.5 for me. This is the second of 2 Pillars tags that goes to a 1-hour draw in 1995. Jesus Christ, Baba, why is that a sentence that has to exist? To the match's credit, it is a lot more interesting than the January Broadway, which I thought crumpled under the weight of its own runtime. Here, though, they do better than to just run a repeat of January and actually introduce some cool ideas to make the hour runtime go down a lot smoother. It's easy to read the opening moments as a direct follow-up to 6-9-95. Misawa's riding the wave of momentum of his 2 successful Triple Crown defenses and nails Toshiaki Kawada with a truly disgusting opening Tiger suplex that nearly knocks Kawada out of the match entirely. Unfortunately, the tag team champions come out with their own devastating maneuver when Taue is able to hit the cliff Nodowa Otoshi less than 10 minutes into the match. This leads to a few interesting consequences. It buys the Holy Demon Army an early advantage, but they've arguably rushed to this point, leaving a lot of potential room for Misawa to recover and make his famous comebacks if Kobashi can just survive the numbers game long enough. Secondly, while this does leave Kobashi alone in the ring with the Holy Demon Army in a reversal of the finish of 6-9-95, it's a much fresher and energized Kobashi now with 4 months further of healing up his leg. Kobashi's not in the dire straits he was in June and is able to hold his own for the most part, with only the numbers eventually catching up to lead to him getting isolated and beaten down by the champions. It's actually a really great idea for a tag heat segment. Even better is the way that the champions cut off Misawa's attempts at comebacks. They knock him off the apron and lay on more punishment, like Taue DDTing Misawa on the exposed hardwood to stall a potential hot tag. The fact that they get a pretty strong half hour out of this material alone makes it stand out against the far more listless January edition. Of course, Misawa does eventually get to tag in, and he's always a delight in the House of Fire hot tag role. Here too, he takes a fun route with this extremely malicious attack to Kawada's knee. Look at him make Kawada think about it too before going to the attack. Nasty. It's a strategy Super Generation Army have used on Kawada before, obviously, but here it feels like a much more pointed payback for 6-9-95. In this segment now, there's another play to eliminate a member of the opposition, but this time executed by the challengers. Kobashi chokes Kawada with a big sleeper that lays out Dangerous K, while the babyfaces isolate Taue in the ring. The match suffers from having an extended control on one of the heels, with it feeling a little too mean for how everyone is meant to be aligned. That being said, it does set up the final little narrative twist of the match, with Kawada finally reviving and attacking Kobashi's arm to commence the final big heat segment of the match. The final 15 minutes or so end up devolving into the bomb throwing we've come to expect at this point from King's Road. There's a really sick Doomsday-style Nodowa Otoshi, and they even gesture at continuing the legwork on Kawada that's earned the babyfaces the victory in the past, but it never really develops quite as well as in their past matches. The whole thing seems to be building to a climax of the babyfaces finally getting the chance to get an extended bombing session on Kawada, but Kawada remains slippery enough to tag out and get Taue caught in the crossfire instead. A wise decision probably, given the leg trouble, as Taue is the one that endures the final stretch of bombs to reach the 60-minute time limit. I still definitely would have preferred a match much more abbreviated than this, but they did well to attempt new narrative twists to keep this from resembling 6-9-95 or even their previous Broadway in January too closely. 3 3/4 for me. In his last Triple Crown title defense of the year, Mitsuharu Misawa takes on his very own tag team partner, Kenta Kobashi. For a moment, it almost looks like this will be a real clean, championship-style bout. But as all these matches in 1995 have, things escalate really quickly from there. In this case, Kobashi nails an early orange crush, a floor powerbomb, and dragon suplex. Of all the matches against the Pillars in 1995, it's the one where Misawa seems to struggle the most to get a foothold against his opponent. Even when he tries to start throwing those game-changing elbows of his, Kobashi absorbs them so much better than anybody since Dr. Death the year prior. Beyond just having a stronger jaw, Kobashi adds a wrinkle to his strategy here too by engaging in some early arm work to try to weaken Misawa's greatest weapon. It's Kobashi taking the fight to the apron that finally gives Misawa an opening to fire back with those elbows. He's able to finally string together some offense that culminates in... And I mean, Jesus Christ. It is just such a brutal fucking bump, and thank God, Kobashi and the match as a whole gives this spot the gravity it deserves. Not only does Kobashi roll to the floor after taking the bump, but the entire complexion of the match changes from here. One gets the impression in hindsight that Kobashi loses the match right here in this moment, and that everything else is just a desperate final climb to buy time in the same fashion that we've seen in the Kawada matches, for example. That being said, the reality of the execution isn't quite as cut and dry as that narrative might make it seem. Kobashi does still make a few comebacks here, again, furthering the idea that in-ring at least, he may just be Misawa's toughest challenger in this reign to this point. There's an especially great moment I love in this, where Kobashi nails a disgusting-looking German suplex on Misawa to get back into the fight. As delightful as that is, though, what might be even better is the follow-up, where Kobashi just charges at Misawa, sending the ace back first into the turnbuckles and further aggravating the injuries to the neck from all the head drops. Really, a moment like that helps capture King's Road to me. It's most famous, and understandably so, for the gruesome bumps these men took, and it's the aspect of their work most often focused on by their worst imitators. But it's the smaller details, like how damaging and potentially game-changing a simple collision into the corner might be, that really separates the originators and masters of this style from those that just want to do some cool spots. So, while I quirk an eyebrow at something like Misawa and Kobashi going down the road of absorbing offense and stringing together offense in a way that feels like the germ of bad no-selling trends down the line, this match still remains anchored enough in the realities of these two characters to feel great nonetheless. The final moments showcase Kobashi's out on his feet selling as he's clinging to the ropes in an attempt to survive the final onslaught from Misawa. As has become a familiar sight in this reign, Misawa is standing tall, putting the finishing touches on his challenger. It's the famed Tiger Driver 91 that ends up putting Kobashi down in the end. Everything about this match seems driven to signal what a major role Kobashi will play in the year to come. Not only does Misawa struggle against Kobashi more so than any other challenger in this reign so far, Kobashi also survives him long enough to drag Misawa to the longest championship match of the reign. If we were to just look at the Triple Crown matches we covered here today, one certainly gets the impression that Kobashi's time in the sun is coming sooner rather than later. 4 1/4 for me. The Pillars would both advance to the finals of the 95 Real World Tag League, with the tag champs of the Holy Demon Army picking up the win in the block stage between the two teams. As things stand, Misawa and Kobashi have yet to successfully defeat the Holy Demon Army in 1995, having only 2 draws and 2 losses to their name. The booking here is pretty obvious on the face of it. It's the big payoff to the Pillars series, a big, heroic victory for Misawa and Kobashi to close out the year for All Japan. As it stands though, this being the 5th tag these two teams have had this year, diminishing returns have definitely settled in, and this match reads more like a scramble of their biggest hits than their much clearer and more coherent other bouts. That's not to say that there's no narrative threads being advanced or called to here, but it's in that advancement that we lose some of what made the other matches feel so special. Notably, the opening moments of the match are a rush. Big bombs start flying from both sides, and it seems to speak to Super Generation armies having healed up and learned from their mistakes in previous bouts in an attempt to stunt the Holy Demon Army's momentum. This time, Kawada and Taue fail to put together the Cliff Nodowa combo, but they do succeed in getting Misawa with a Doomsday Notowa to the floor, which takes out Misawa early, similar to the last Broadway. Kawada and Taue seem to have decided to go for the arm on Kobashi, again an extension of their last tag, but it proves a lot less effective for them compared to Kobashi's injured leg in June. At the same time, Misawa's much more proactive about running defense for his team, and in general, Super Generation Army work a lot better to shut down the Holy Demon Army's offense. It's very much a match about the Super Generation Army finally counteracting all the Holy Demon Army's bullshit and getting their payback in the process. Notably, towards the final moments, Misawa nails a Tiger Driver on Kawada on the concrete, which feels significant given how Kawada's avoided the more grotesque floor and apron bumps in the series so far. The action is still fun, and it does move at a fairly breezy pace, even if I would have preferred something neater and with different winners. However, I think Baba's booking does no one any favors in this regard. This matchup feels worn down to the bone at this point, and it's showing in the ring work too. The cutoffs feel way more repetitive than ever before, with even my beloved Akira Taue overdoing the Nodowa as a go-to transition move. It doesn't help either that the tournament feels far less high stakes in this context, as for the first time since 1987, the Tag League was not used to crown new tag team champions. The Holy Demon Army come in as champions, and they remain champions while still giving Misawa and Kobashi the win to close out the feud. It feels cheap and generally just lazy as a booking choice, which adds to the overall sense that everyone involved is running out of ideas. 3.5 stars for me. While covering 1995, I got into some of my absolute favorite matches in the King's Road canon. The Carnival Final, 6-9-95, and the annual Kawada Triple Crown Challenge. That being said, the institutional rot of some of Baba's booking patterns have definitely begun to settle in. Things like not letting Kawada's reign develop, hitting diminishing returns on the Pillars tag, and letting Misawa run through all the fellow Pillars all in a row feel like conservative booking choices meant to ride out Misawa's drawing power as their most popular wrestler, but otherwise damaging the overall pacing of the promotion's development. Some of these booking choices came as a result of the changing fortunes in business the company saw in the mid-90s. By this point, the historic streak of Budokan sellouts All Japan touted was well in the past, and the veracity of those promotional claims remains dubious at best to begin with. On top of that, All Japan's extremely late-night time slot on television had been cut from 1 hour to half an hour in early 1994. This affected a change in booking strategy for Baba, wanting to prioritize the experience of the live fans in attendance over relying on the television program. That's what results in major choices like the multiple Broadways outside of the Tokyo market and rerunning a reliable and lucrative matchup like the Pillars tag repeatedly. This similarly puts into context the increasing run times on some of these major matches, especially in regards to Kobashi and his matches outside of Tokyo. It was an attempt to give the live fans in attendance the sense that they got their money's worth through a more is more approach to wrestling. As I've covered, I think these changes have mixed to negative results. The great wrestling is still happening, but one can start to feel the wear and tear on the machinery. Things are getting out of hand, bloated, excessive, with only the sheer physicality and creativity of the workers on hand fueling some otherwise questionable choices. 1995 felt like a downturn in the company's creative and business overall, despite still showcasing some of the greatest pro wrestling I've ever seen. From a creative and commercial standpoint, a shakeup would be needed. Misawa couldn't bear the burden forever, no matter how much Baba thought it was appropriate. The Pillars would have to move, and heaven itself would need to find a renewed strength. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Before I head out of here, of course, I want to send a special thank you to SamTheVAMod for co-editing this video with me, and IQWrestler for providing the wonderful title sequence that goes at the start of this. And of course, I want to send a huge thank you to all of my Ko-fi supporters. Thank you to one-time supporters in the likes of Raum, Carson, Alex C, Master John Burr, Matt Medwin, Thurman, Patrick Faruja, Juan C. Gonzalez, Shortanka, Armani, Corey Bailey, Michael, and Doc235. And a massive, massive thank you to all of my monthly subscribers in James Draper, Captain Jack Heartless, Eddie Roberts, Jacob Dickens, Chick Fritz, Spiders in My Bed, Timothy R. Buchner, In the Lane, Peter Vinnison, Kid King Pin, Joe Humphreys, Christopher Jackson, Four Pillars of Hell, Sean Emily, Mason Rollison, Carve Kutta, Jacob VR, Merch Table Mafia, Ando Commando, Shane, Vibe MD, Christoph, Quentin Besnahard, Christopher Richards, Dom G, Austin Shermer, Wrestling Playlist, Woo! Francois DeBuck, Justin Roberge, Secret Cow 42, and Matt Wasung. You guys are absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for continuing to support my work and show up for these videos when they do arrive. The plans are intact. We will be doing 1996, so keep an eye out for that. I would like to get to a few other projects before we return to King's Road, though. Check out those things. In the meantime, check out my website, josephmontecillo.com. I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/josephweirdness, basically every weekend. Thank you all again so much for sticking around and supporting what I do. I'm really, really grateful for it. Thank you once more, and have a good one.